Hello everybody and welcome to my crushing criticism of Train Sim World 3. In today's video I'm going to be going through what I think make Train Sim World 2 a potential good game and possibly more importantly why I think it's a bad game and some potential improvements to make it an overall slightly better game. I have some opinions that will probably become clear throughout the video. It is imperative, and I'll say this now, that you form your own opinions and you're not just influenced by me. You should go and do your own research and decide whether this is a purchase that you should buy. I'm going to format this into chapters so you can skirt around the video, see where the good bits are, the juicy bits, see where the bad bits are. So let's jump straight in. We're going to start with the bad and then go to the good, then to the improvements. The first example of why Train Sim World 3 is a bad game, in my opinion, is its economics and the business tactics at Dovetail Games. The first problem I have with this, under this category, is they're charging for bug fixes to Train Sim World 2 routes. So the obvious example is Southeastern High Speeds. Most of the assets on the high speed section were actually wrong, but they're not going to roll out any of the improvements or the changes to the Train Sim World 2 route. You have to actually buy the new route or buy the new game to get the new route ported over, which doesn't come cheap. They're also doing this to other routes I've read, such as Harlem Line and many others besides. These will include some of the features, some of the bug fixes that they never actually got round to releasing for Train Sim World 2 that apparently they're going to release for Train Sim World 3. Hopefully this changes and people who bought faulty products for Train Sim World 2 can be able to get their bug fixes rolled out to that game that they paid money for, not cheap either. So yeah, hopefully that gets fixed, but I'm not sure if it will. And the other reason is why their business tactics are bad is the advertising appears to appeal to children more, possibly hoping to capitalise on children's compulsive or impulsive desire to have things. And I talked about this a little bit in my live stream, where kids will run up to mummy and daddy and say, "Please, can I have this?" And then they'll buy it for the children and they'll play it for like 2 days and then they'll stop and they'll never touch it again. But at that point, it won't be eligible for a refund anymore because it will have well over 2 hours of playtime and then it won't get any more. Their advertising seems to be skewed to capitalise upon sort of the naivety of children. And also, one final thing under this banner is there's no attempt to retain the Train Sim World 2 audience, probably the slightly older target demographic. There's no discount if you own Train Sim World 2. There's no real incentive for anyone to upgrade, really, apart from the 3 routes. Another category why I think Train Sim World 3 is bad is because it's interest. There's low interest. In my opinion, there are no interesting routes. Train Sim World 2, when it released, it had a high-speed route, which at the time was highly requested. However, on the side of that, it still had fast S-Bahn routes, with the great possibility to scale. It also had the Bakerloo line, and any line on the London Underground was incredibly highly suggested as well. So that was a good fit, a good tick box. And the other one was Sandpatch Grade, which whilst it had released for Train Sim World PC, had never been released for console, and it was sort of the first proper hilly freight route. Train Sim World 3, however, has a really long high-speed route, but it's half in tunnels, and it only has 3 stations and a consistent speed limit. And it has a safety system that allows you to do nothing. The trains will drive themselves, which I think is really boring. I'm not interested in that, and it also, well, I'll talk about it a bit later, but it's just a mockery of another route, really. There's another route, right, Cajon Pass, which is a desert and a train, and you go up the hill and down the hill. You ring a bell? Sherman Hill, perhaps? And the only other route is one that we've already had. The only thing that really draws me towards this game, personally, is the test track, which is ironic because I'm going to spend more time on it with the scenario planner, just dicking around, maybe exploring the building, exploring the area, and then doing, some fake shunting, managing it as if it's like my own railway or something like that. I don't know, it sounds a bit cliche and a bit cringe. I don't know what I'll do with it, but I'll probably spend quite a lot of time in the test track, because it sounds quite fun just driving around on your own accord. But I'm not going to use it for, like, driver training. Because, half the trains I already own, which I'll come to in a moment. Another category why I think Train Sim World 3 is bad is because of the novelty. There is no novelty to this game. Whereas maybe if there was novelty, but they still weren't interesting, maybe that would boost its score. Or if there was interest, but still no novelty. So what I mean by novelty is, like, a new type of route. So, you can have, like, 3 really interesting high-speed routes, but there's no novelty between them. They're all high-speed. They're still the same type of route. So what I'm talking about is, we've only got one really mountain railway. We haven't got any rack railways. We haven't got any, like, jungle railways or any international railways outside the big 3, more or less. So, like, a novelty for me would be something like a route in the Netherlands, Japan, Australia, or New Zealand, or something like that. Or something that's really highly suggested that we haven't seen yet, like London Overground or the New York Subway or something like that. Or something really obscure, but still really cool, like the Bernina Pass or Matterhorn Gotthardbahn, which are both really nice Swiss mountain railways. They're narrow gauge, in a similar light to the Arosa line. Instead, the routes we've been given are Cajon Pass, a hilly US freight route with long trains through a desert, with a big, powerful diesel loco and then a smaller 6-axle switcher. Does that bring any like Sherman Hill vibes? Up a hill, down a hill, 60 mile an hour with the big heavy locomotive and an SD40? No? Doesn't remind you? Must be a coincidence then. We've also got a really long high-speed route with 3 stations. Does that bring any vibes for LGV Med, perhaps? No? Another coincidence. And we've got a literal existing route with no new rolling stock. They couldn't be bothered to add, like, a Class 700 or a Class 466 or something like that. No, we're just stuck with the sodding Electrostars, the Javelin, and I'll come on a bit later to talk about one big elephant in the room that they could have added to the route to make it brilliant. Another reason why I think Train Sim World 3 is fundamentally bad is that it's a new title. I originally speculated that it'd be an update for Train Sim World 2, similar to Rush Hour was, with a rebrand. However, we've obviously found out that it is a whole new release, and you've got to actually buy a new game that runs on a whole different, code, even though it's basically just a modified version of Train Sim World 2 at the core. And I don't like this because a lot of the new features, like the new lighting and weather systems, could just be rolled into an update for Train Sim World 2. And I've also, as I mentioned previously, you got to obtain this new title for some bug fixes to Train Sim World 2 routes, which is, in my opinion, a scam. And it's a grubby cash grab from Dovetail Games. And when Train Sim World 2 released, it had a new engine, it had new tools like the Livery Designer, which were highly requested, and it had optimization boosts. This game is going to have longer routes, more demanding recommended software, recommended hardware specs, cost more, and not actually add that much more stuff. Really, it's not going to add that much, which is why I really disagree with the idea of it being a completely new release. Possibly the biggest reason why I don't like Train Sim World 3 is the price. It costs almost double the amount for Train Sim World 2 cost for half the stuff. And that's half the stuff personally for me. Obviously, if you're buying it fresh, all of the stuff is going to be new. But for me, I already own an SD40-2. I already own an ICE3. I already own a 185.2. I already own all of the rolling stock that operates on Southeastern High Speed. I already own all of it, and I paid a lot of money for it, more importantly. And the fact that there's no discount for me, or just for pre-ordering, as there always has been, always 10%. at least on Steam. Always 10% for pre-order. Now that's only for Deluxe, which is even less helpful for me, because it's still more expensive than Standard, but I have to buy a route that I already have as well, which I think is just stupid, but that's the way it is. But it's very simple. It's too expensive. They're probably selling these at a loss. They're probably a loss leader already. So I think they should. They've got nothing to lose by lowering the price a bit. Sure, it can be a little bit more expensive because the routes are longer, and there is sort of 3.5 routes if you include the test track. But I don't think it needs to be £50 for standard edition. I think that is a bit of a rip-off. My final negative review or negative criticism of Train Sim World 3, after a long line of them, is this branding. The way they've advertised it, they made it appear to be like a shitty mobile game, like, epic, amazing, drive trains with left thumb and brake with your left index finger. You sort of get my vibe, and as I mentioned earlier, it obviously appeals to a younger audience. It's like a call to arms to young children. I really don't like it. They Dovetail are sort of turning it away from the super immersive, highly detailed, highly technical simulator that it was, and it did really well. And I think they're turning it too much into a game for children, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think the game's gonna lose its character, and I think it's gonna lose that character very quickly, especially after their whole player base leaves. Their whole previously loyal player base leaves them, which I think quite a lot of people will do, and that's the impression I've got as well. Quite a lot of people are intending to leave the franchise, because of the poor management of this. So yeah, who knows what's going to happen. I hope Dovetail learn from this, and I hope they don't make a mistake on this scale in the future. Right, finally onto some good stuff. Good points, I guess, the lighting engine. It looks nice, and I like the tunnel feature. When you leave a tunnel, you get a quick flash of white. That's good. Some other games, like The Crew 2, I know, and probably many others. I only said The Crew 2 because I have it, and I've played it for quite a lot. They have that kind of feature, and it is very immersive, and it adds quite a lot to the overall route, and I do like that. Otherwise, the dynamic weather has been highly requested, and it does look nice, it has to be said. And the test track, I think the test track is a good idea. It's got a simple and functional design for tutorials, so it removes the stress and complications of other stuff occurring around, like other trains. How do I drive that? How do I drive that? How do I drive that? Look at all this. Look at the church. Look at the bells going. Look at the sound of the plane flying overhead. Instead, this is just nice fake mountain in Switzerland. You got your train and your track, and that's it. And I think that'll provide a more gradual learning curve. And as I said earlier, it's probably going to be quite fun just to muck around in free play and scenario planner. And also having a building one can walk around should be good. And this was something that they Rivet started to do for Isle of Wight 2022, and possibly this trend of allowing more freedom for the user on foot is something we can expect to continue. The last thing is route extensions. I do like the idea of route extensions. That's been something that's been very highly suggested, and hopefully we can also get some route sort of connections, which the obvious ones are the ones around... the names escaped me. The S-Bahn line that connects to Rösing Nord. Wuppertal, the two lines around Wuppertal and Hagen, I think they could be connected, and they could have like one long driving experience. Also, obviously, Brighton Main Line and East Coastway could be connected as well. Possibly a connection between South East and High Speed and those two routes, potentially. But I'm not gonna call shots on anything. So yeah, those are the good things, and now we'll go into some improvements. So these are some improvements that I think could genuinely really improve the game, and Of course, there might be some technical hurdles, or some of them might actually be impossibilities due to licensing and things like that. But I do think that Dovetail should seriously consider them if they haven't already, and actually tell the community why they're not doing stuff that is so highly suggested. So we've got 3 improvements. 1, Eurostar. You got a route that's now got 3 stations that the Eurostar stops at. So why don't you add it? You know, you're contemplating adding like a TGV into the route, but that's not really correct. And I could do that in Scenario Planner. A Eurostar would add so much more interest and diversity to Southeastern High Speed, and even though it probably does have licensing barriers, it'd add new rolling stock. You know, you could add a Class 373 and a 374, even if you add them as a loco pack, for fuck's sake. If that is $50 for those 2 trains, I will buy that as soon as I can. You know, they are such iconic trains. Everyone knows of the Eurostar. Everyone knows what that is. You know, it's the stereotypical European train, for crying out loud. And you've got a brilliant route to put it on. It's just... I mean, maybe Dovetail is working on that behind the scenes. Hopefully they are. But I'd have so much fun driving a 373 around the south of England. That'd just be so much fun. As a potential workaround, you could give the ICE 3 TVM 430 capability, and give it that funky Union Jack livery, and then you could do that like a test train, replace the TGV roll with that. And then you could sort of informally allow modders to re-livery that and give it a new timetable and add it to the timetable and blah, blah, blah. And that would also allow us to use the route up to 300 kilometres an hour, which south of Ebbsfleet is High Speed 1's running speed, but the Class 395s are limited to 230, I believe it is, even south of there. So you could get up to the 300, and you could get even slightly faster journeys. So, you know, if someone wants to be on there for 40 minutes instead of an hour, you could definitely do that as well. Another improvement is the lower price. I really think that a lower price is necessary. Charging £50 for standard edition and £40 for an individual route is a rip-off. It is an absolute rip-off. I understand that they're more expensive because the routes are longer, but they're not actually adding much more stock. There are only 2 new trains to this, right? All of the others are reused. Possibly with new sounds, but the hardest part's modelling them, right? If you're gonna... there's only two new locos, and only 2 new routes, more or less, or 2.5 new routes, and then a fictional one. So I don't see how it has to be like double the price. I think it should be closer to the original price that you could get Train Sim World 2 for, not the discounted one it's now at, but the original one that it sold for, which was $43 Australian. I'm not sure what that is in other currency, because I know this route's now going for $70 for standard edition Australian. But I would say it should go more for £40 for standard, 30 for a single route, and 50 for premium. That is more reasonable. That's a lot more reasonable. And it's only £10 off. And my final improvement for the game is a discount system. There should be 10% discount for all pre-orders. I understand there's a technical hurdle because for Xbox, because it's on Xbox Game Pass, the standard edition. So what? You know, some parts of Train Sim World 2 run Xbox Game Pass, and you could still get a pre-order discount for that on Steam or any other platform. Just because it's limited on one platform, it doesn't mean you have to limit it on all of the platforms, which some people would say is unfair, but that's the way the game has been run for the last 3 years. So, you know, tough luck. If you want the price, if you want it cheaper, you get it on PC. It's not really unfair if you think about it. And then I think as well there should be 10% discount as a blanket if you already own Train Sim World 2, plus a 0.5% additional discount for any DLC that you have. So, That adds to a maximum of 30% off all up. That's like the cap. Or £28 for standard edition. If you have all of the stuff. So if you like pre-order it and already own Train Sim World 2 and all of the DLC, the maximum you can get off is 30%, even if you could get like 50% off, right? And I think that is a much nicer way to keep the existing player base and keep them happy as well. Because you can't just... This is a steal from Dovetail. They're just nicking money for not much. But, you know, say you pre-ordered and you had Train Sim World 2 and then you got 2 DLCs, you would get 21% off, which is reasonable. But if you had 10 DLCs and you didn't pre-order it, you get the 10% off for owning Train Sim World 2, plus an extra 5%, so you get 15% off. And, you know, maybe there's a hurdle for Steam, but surely you could just get some man to do that behind the scenes. Anyway. So, that's my rant about crushing criticisms of Train Sim World 3, keep it related to the title. I'd like to know what you think as well. And I'd like to know what route extensions you think could happen, or what new opportunities this game provides for you, or more importantly, what opportunities the game doesn't provide for you, and what would make you buy the game, or what currently is making you want to buy the game. But yeah, thank you all very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed. If you have, consider hitting the like button and subscribing, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.